Alrighty, well, it's cold. I got the heat on, but it's still pretty cold anyway. Rocky is asleep. His belly is full of wet food, so he's asleep. Look at him sleeping there, eh? He's pretty cute. He is. Very cute. Anyway, seeing as how I got nothing better to do, I'm going to tell you a story about, I'll tell you a story about somebody I knew. He's passed away now, but one of our local characters in my hometown of Perth, Ontario, Canada. He lived in a trailer park outside of Perth. He actually lived in a trailer with his mother, and then his mother passed away, and he stayed in the trailer until he eventually passed away. But he was an alcoholic. This guy, he was a serious alcoholic, and just loved his alcohol anyway. And used to drive drunk a lot and stuff. And he had a little Ford car one time, and it was a little Ford car with just a little four-banger engine and an automatic transmission. Anyway, he drove from Perth to Smiths Falls drunk one time, a distance of 12 miles. And by the time we got to Smiths Falls, the car was just done. It wouldn't run anymore or anything. He had it open right up. He had the pedal right to the floor the whole way. And anyway, he ended up abandoning it in the parking lot at the hockey arena, which is just when you first come into Smiths Falls on the right-hand side. There's a hockey arena. That's where he abandoned the car, and it ended up being scrapped because it was done. It was completely done after that trip. But it turned out what he had done is, because he was drunk, he had the transmission, he pulled the lever right down into first gear. And so he was driving the thing in low gear, in first gear, 12 miles. He had his foot right to the floor, I guess. And that's how he went to Smiths Falls drunk, and he destroyed his car anyway. He just wrecked the engine and the transmission, completely wrecked them. Overheated everything and just basically cooked the drive line of that little car. But that's not really the story I want to tell you today. That's just a story to give you an idea of the mentality of this person anyway. The story I'm going to tell you, though, is kind of a funny one. As I said, he was an alcoholic, this guy. And after his mother died, he stayed in the trailer until he eventually passed away as well. But he had a party at his trailer. And this story was relayed to me by a guy who was at the party. It was a big drinking party, a big drunk. And I guess they were all sitting around drinking, and they were playing poker at the kitchen table and all that stuff, playing cards, gambling and stuff. Anyway, party went on all day and into the night. And at some point, after about 12 hours or 15 hours or whatever, one of the guys that was there drinking, he says to this fella, he says, "Hey, I think there's something wrong with your cat. It's been laying over there up against the baseboard, and it hasn't moved the whole time I've been here. I've been here for 12, 15 hours. The cat has not moved once in all that time." He said, "I think there's something wrong with your cat." Anyway, this fella, he said that. The other fella, he says, "Well, what are you talking about? I don't have a cat." The guy says, "Well, over there." He pointed over there against the wall. "Your cat." He said, "I see a cat over there. Whose cat is that? That if it's not your cat, whose cat is it?" He said, "I think it might be dead. It hasn't moved. It's either dead or it's damn sick, because it hasn't moved the whole time I've been here." So anyway, the guy goes over and he has a look. He kind of pokes at the thing. Turns out it was a huge dust bunny. It was a great big dust bunny. It was the size of a cat. And so this guy had been watching this dust bunny all day, waiting for it to do something. And I guess he figured it was a cat and that it had died or something because it hadn't moved. It was either dead or really sick because it hadn't moved. The full 12 or 15 hours or whatever it was that he had been there, that thing had not moved. So he figured I better let him know. I think his cat has passed away, you know. So that's what he said. He said, hey, there's something wrong with your cat. I don't have a cat. What are you talking about? Big dust bunny. Big dust bunny. Anyway, that's just one story I recall. Hearing, lots of funny stuff happens, but yeah. Anyway, that's it. My goodness. Honey, there was another story. A friend of mine, actually, who did body work, fixed the bodies of cars. He had a bad drinking problem as well. And I remember I stopped into a shop to see him one time. This is a different person than the person with the big dust bunny that somebody thought was a cat. Stopped in to see him one time, and in his shop. And what he had done is he had he gotten this it was like a Chev. Oh, those big Chevs with what do they call those things? Those big Chev trucks that are all enclosed. Isn't that awful? If I wasn't trying to think of it. They look a bit like a Ford, like a Jeep Wagoneer or something, that style of truck. But they were made by Chev anyway. And if I wasn't trying to think of it, I'd be able to. But anyway, he had one of those in there. And it was like kind of a cross between a station wagon and a truck anyway. He had one of those in there. And all the bottom panels, they rust out. All vehicles seem to do that. They rust out right along the bottoms, the rocker panels and the doors, and stuff. Anyway, he had that in there. And he had a big can of rocker guard connected to the airline, and he's putting the rocker guard right to it anyway. And what rocker guard is, it's almost like an asphalt, like a rubberized asphalt coating. And after you do body work on a car, or if you have a car that's in good shape that doesn't need body work, if you put the rocker guard to it, along the bottom of the panels, it prevents stones from flying up and chipping the paint, which then opens you up to rust, eh? That's how cars rust along the bottom, as the paint gets damaged, usually by stones flying up off the road, especially if you travel on side roads a lot and stuff. And then once those stones fly up and hit that and chip the paint, then that allows the moisture to get in there, and then the process of rusting starts. The metal starts to rust. Anyway, if you put this rubberized, asphalty type stuff on there, it prevents that from happening. It dries hard. It looks nice. It's black and it looks nice. And it just prevents that from happening. Or at least slows the process down quite a bit. Not that you ever can prevent rust 100%, no matter what it is. If it's made out of metal, if it's made out of steel, it's going to rust. Sooner or later, it's going to corrode, no matter what you do. But there's just different ways of fighting it to slow it down, and that's one of them. But what he was doing is he was just going over top of the rust. So all this stuff, he's just coating it right on there. So all this stuff was filling the rust holes up and covering it up nicely. Looked really good. But the thing is, after a while, the rust will start to bleed through that. Like you can't do that. That's not a cure for rust. You can't just leave the rust there and just go over it with rocker guard. That's not. But it would look really good. It would look like he had fixed it when the customer came to pick it up. But like I say, couple months or 3 months down the road, all that rust is going to start to bleed out for the rocker guard, and it's going to look like hell. Anyway, I go in there. I open the door and I walk into the shop and I see what he's doing. Right away, I know what he's doing, And I say, Jimmy, what are you doing? you know. And he looked up at me without batting an eye, and he says, "Tom, rocker guard covers a multitude of sins." Then he just went back at it, you know. Well, I couldn't argue with him. He was right, you know. When the man's right, he's right. Anyway, so rocker guard does cover a multitude of sins. Not permanently, though. It's only a very temporary fix, and it is because it isn't a fix, really. But I'm pretty sure the customer was paying for a fix, and he didn't get that. But anyway, that's just one of the stories, anyway, and it's another person that I knew years ago. But yeah, remember that, Jimmy? What are you doing? Tom, rocker guard covers a multitude of sins. He went right back at it again. My God, I wouldn't want to be the owner of that truck. Oh, mad. I'd be friggin' mad when all the rust started to come out. Between well, I got taken there, didn't I? Anyway, that's it for now. Just a couple of stories anyway to come to mind. We'll talk to y'all later.